This session is on financial fraud. So we'll be looking at various perspectives around the fraud that happens in the financial industry around you and me. So we'll be looking at a detailed understanding of what fraud means. We'll be looking at the financial metrics that we are part of to understand a better perspective of fraud. We'll be looking at various actions that make us vulnerable and how to take proactive preventive measures so that we prevent that fraud from happening in our day-to-day lives. To understand the financial fraud, we need to understand the financial metrics that we are part of. This is a 5-level or 5 circles that the matrix represents, which starts with your physical self, and then your identity comes, which could be your mobile number, your KYC or ID documents, your login credentials that you create for various sites, or it could be the secret questions and answers that you set for various logins. Then using this identity, you create a certain set of accounts, which is nothing but your store of value or your funding lines, such as the savings accounts, credit cards, your current accounts, overdraft accounts, loan accounts across various banks or financial institutions within the country. Now, these accounts have certain access channels, which could range from the physical access channels such as branches or kiosks, and online channels such as net banking, mobile banking through an app, phone banking, SMS banking, or the latest unified payments interface, or even the WhatsApp banking features that get introduced today. And then using these access channels, you do transactions at certain points of transaction, which could range from the wallets that you have, like the Paytm wallet, the e-commerce sites that you use, such as the Amazon site, the various banking beneficiaries that you add for doing transaction, various bill payments you do, the stock brokers with whom you transfer money, and the third-party applications such as CRED. Now, if you see this financial metrics, as you move inward, the fraud sensitivity goes high. So you should be very careful when you deal with things on the inner circles. And we also understand that the financial metrics is keeping on expanding with the various products and offerings that are coming out there in the market. So this means that we should be all the more careful with fraud prevention. Now let us look at various actions that make you vulnerable to fraud and how we can prevent those. Let us start with the innermost circle, which is you or your physical self. We don't have many cases of physical abductions or kidnapping nowadays related to fraud, but people are more interested in your digital identity. But traditional pickpocketers still can do the damage in case you are keeping too many cards or ID documents in your wallet. So that is one mistake which you do. So make sure that you keep the very minimum number of cards and ID documents that you need, bare minimum, in your wallet. That way you can limit your exposure to fraud. Now, the next level is your identity. Now here, one of the common mistake that people do is keeping the same password across multiple sites, in which case a leak at one site could make you vulnerable across multiple. So make sure to keep unique login credential across sites. The second mistake people do is actually giving away KYC documents to agents without proper attestations. Make sure that you attest the documents with proper date, purpose, and the recipient's name so that they don't misuse it. The third mistake people do is not caring if their mobile SIM goes inactive for some time. This might be a SIM swap fraud on you, where the fraudster gets duplicate SIM in your name and takes actions on your behalf. So if that happens, make sure to contact your service provider and block the SIM. The fourth mistake that happens with respect to your identity is actually sharing certain SMSs from your mobile with strangers. It might even be an encrypted SMS which actually represents your mobile device and your SIM to authenticate yourself. So don't share any such details with anyone because that will make you vulnerable to fraud. The next level is our accounts, where the fraudster's aim is to get hold of the details of our financial accounts, which is at a premium value in the black market as well. So the primary mistake people make here is sending the account details online to dear and near ones. But don't send any sensitive details via online channels because it could get hacked. The second mistake people do is giving away sensitive details such as card number, CVV, etc. to strangers who especially pose as if they are going to initiate some refund or initiate some offers for you. But don't share any such details. The third major mistake people do is not differentiating between max capital account and the regular transaction account. Max capital accounts are those accounts where you keep 99% of your capital or money, and the regular transaction account is where you keep 1% of your money. Right? So in the max capital account, you limit your access and limit the number of transactions you do. Whereas in the regular transaction account, you enable all the accesses and the conveniences you need, but keep minimum amount of money, thereby limiting your exposure. And the next mistake people do is actually doing transactions, especially on the max capital account, through your mobile phones. Make sure to do it through laptop because it has better antivirus and control features. Saving card details online in less trusted sites or in every site is another common vulnerable action that people do. Make sure that you save card or account details only in the most trusted, frequently visited sites, as that will benefit you. Increasing the limit on your card, the limit of spending on your cards is another vulnerable action because as the limit increases, your exposure increases to fraud. Make sure to keep the limit to your average monthly spend or your maximum monthly spend that you make. Next level is our access channels, where the fraudster tries to mimic our access channels or tries to intrude into our access channels. The first mistake that people do nowadays is scanning of QR codes, because when you scan QR codes, you don't know what is behind the QR code, which link it is going to execute. So try to resist that temptation. Do it only if it is a trusted merchant or a trusted site or an application, right? The second vulnerability here is that people misunderstand certain features, especially the UPI, where there is a pay versus collect feature. People mistake the collect feature as if they are going to collect money, but collect feature means that the person who has initiated the collect request receives the money. So very often people end up sending money to people rather than receiving money, right? And the third vulnerable action people do is clicking on links without understanding what is behind these links. So do not click on any links, especially if it is sent on your mobile. Directly go to the website of the corresponding service provider and see the offers there and take actions there. Or else come to your laptop and access the link there. Another mistake people do is actually enabling international transactions and limits on their cards without a significant need to do so. So do not enable international transactions or privileges on your card unless and until there is a very selective specific need. Fake branches could be another threat that you could face. So make sure that you are walking into a genuine branch before you initiate a transaction or deposit money there. Coming to the last level in the financial matrix, the points of transaction. The first mistake people do here is believing the help desk person 100%. Make sure that you always take their instructions with a pinch of salt, especially with respect to sensitive information. Believing the identity shown by caller ID apps is another mistake that people do. Always make sure that if you need any number or email address of the help desk, go to the original website and get those. Adding one-time beneficiaries to your transaction profile is another mistake people do. If it is just a one-off transaction, make sure that you do a quick transaction and don't add them as a beneficiary. You never know, you might add a fraudster's account into your profile in some cases. So we have seen various vulnerable actions across the financial matrix and how to protect ourselves against those. Remember, as we go inside the circle, the threat increases and the value increases. The primary thing to remember is that self-awareness is key to prevent any fraud. Always remember that too good to be true is always a trap. Always make sure to minimize the number of access points that you have towards your accounts, especially if those are the max capital accounts. Please implement these learnings with your accounts, and any doubts, put it in the comment section.